All right, y'all, let's talk about how you can lose fat on a pro-metabolic diet. And why this diet is so powerful is that it's going to help you to lose fat faster by eating more food and doing less exercise. This is the approach I actually took myself to finally get my six pack after years of struggling with my weight. And I believe that you will get similar results when you apply this correctly into your life. So today in this video, I want to tell you and teach you what the pro-metabolic diet approach is, then give you the 5 main things that make a diet pro-metabolic, then give you a full day of eating, nutrition guide, and step-by-step instructions for you to apply this into your own life today to get those nice fat loss results. Let's get into the video. So my name is Nick Rideout, and I'm a health coach. I help people to lose fat, build muscle, and double their energy levels, but I've also been right where you are. In my journey to lose over 100 pounds, I had to spend years going through different diets, different approaches, and all these different things you see online, but none of it worked for me. It wasn't until I adopted this whole model of nutrition that I'm going to teach you that I was able to finally achieve those results that I wanted and have the vitality that I desired. I now maintain my body weight at 230 pounds. I eat more than 3,500 calories a day, and I also have a ton of carbohydrates, and overall, I feel pretty good all the time. So if you'd like one-on-one care and personalized assistance to set up your nutrition, diet, training, and overall lifestyle to get your nice fat loss and increase your energy levels, then you can apply to work with me one-on-one down below. With that, I'm going to first off start this video by saying, what is a pro-metabolic diet? A pro-metabolic diet, put simply, is a way of eating designed to support your metabolism, helping you to produce energy efficiently. You will see that this diet is optimized for you to have better hormonal function, better mood, digestion, energy levels, and overall even a higher consciousness, which is something I'll get into at a later point in another video. But this whole model is based around the study of bioenergetics, or the study of how energy flows through living systems. This approach is something that when you begin to understand the big idea and the big understanding of how all this operates, it just makes too much sense for you to try any other diet approach within your life. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to only eat meat, or hey, I'm just going to cut carbohydrates. It's just a big understanding, and when you can apply this model, you can pick any different way. You can gain fat, lose fat, gain muscle, anything that you want when you understand the principles of this approach. So that is the main idea of this approach, and I'm going to give you my synthesis of this coming through the lens of body recomposition and fat loss. The very first thing and the primary thing of a pro-metabolic diet approach is to support thyroid function, specifically adequate T3 thyroid hormone. So in your body, your T3 thyroid hormone is the main driver of the metabolic rate within the body. It's what's used for energy, for production, to assimilate food into actual usable energy down into the cellular level. When it is low, you're going to have a hard time trying to lose fat. Your body's going to be more efficient at actually storing fat, and you're also not going to be able to maintain the muscle mass that you want when you are in a deficit. Now, a big mistake that I see people making, and the worst approach that you could possibly do, and this comes from a lot of dumbasses out there today, is they try to reduce your calories even more and try to increase the amount of exercise for you to do, and that just makes a terrible situation for somebody who is in a hypothyroid, hypometabolic state, all right? When that happens, you can end up releasing more counter-regulatory hormones such as cortisol, adrenaline, lactic acid, nitric oxide. All this stuff starts to become out of balance, and it makes it a very difficult way for you to maintain your body weight without restrictive dieting and exercise. All right. So that's the hypometabolic state. But what happens when you take this pro-metabolic approach and you start to increase T3 thyroid hormone? Well, T3 is that main driver of the metabolic rate, which means that you'll be able to eat more food and convert more of it into energy, leading to less fat storage. Your body's actually going to upregulate other hormones like testosterone, DHT, because the main synthesis, the main pathway of having T3 and the conversion process in the hormones, you actually start to increase your body's ability to produce testosterone naturally. You don't have to hop on TRT or need these things when you get thyroid function right, all right? In addition, you start to improve insulin sensitivity. And with that, you again start to convert more of your body you start to tell your body to not store fat and to use energy instead of that, all right? This whole process is the main idea of the pro-metabolic approach to support energy production down to the cellular level. And that's really the main indicator of if you're going to be in a good state or not, is going to be the T3 thyroid hormone. Now, to activate this oxidative metabolism, you need a few different things. And I'll touch more on this at a later date, but put simply, if you have adequate carbohydrate, you start to have a better pathway. You start to increase the amount of energy you're producing on this oxidative metabolism state. So that's the main thing, is that we want to be on this pathway because it's going to help your body to become more efficient, and within the mitochondria, you're producing more ATP, and it's giving your body more energy. if you have more energy as a total, you are going to be able to move more. You're going to be able to have better hormonal balance. You're going to have a better mood. And overall, all the energy is going to have less ability to convert into fat storage. Okay. So another thing to help support this in the thyroid function is going to be to have a calcium to phosphate ratio of about 1:1, or really, I'm going to break it down. It's where it comes from, like theory to application of just having more calcium. Okay. So why this is so important is that if we look at calcium, it is a very pro-metabolic nutrient. And there are many studies showing the effectiveness of milk in fat loss. For instance, if somebody is on a high calcium diet, which is, obviously high in milk, they start to see greater fat reduction within their waist and lower body mass index, and fat-free mass index starts to improve as well. Now, that's just like the benefits of calcium. And you'll notice that people who drink milk, they're usually pretty freaking lean all the time. And a lot of people in the 1940s and stuff, they were naturally lean, but also their dairy intake was very high and they had great quality dairy, mainly due to the access of calcium. So the way that you want to go about this in your diet is going to be to increase foods and proteins, specifically high in calcium. So the main thing there is dairy. Dairy is going to be a superfood you'll see at the end of the video when I begin to apply this. At the same time, you want to reduce high phosphate foods, mainly from excess muscle meats and grains, nuts, and seeds. Those are your high phosphate ones. So we're going to begin to balance this ratio and just begin to add more calcium within our diet, all right? The next thing we want to do in this diet, the fourth step, is going to be PUFA restriction, and this is the big one. If you look at this and the impact in the body, it's a very large thing that I think people need to pay more attention to when it comes to having a better metabolic environment within their body. So PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids, specifically omega-6 and down a step further, linoleic acid, it starts to impair mitochondrial function and start to slow down thyroid function by 25 to 30%. This was known for a long time, and I like to point this out that they started to feed pigs these oils back in the 40s, these seed oils, which is where PUFA is really high in. And they did this intentionally for them to be able to eat less food and get fatter. They start to slow down the thyroid function. That obviously is not what you want if you're trying to lose fat, all right? Now, I've also seen this firsthand. I've been out places where people are growing chickens to begin to sell them, and they intentionally give them these oils to slow down the thyroid gland so they can get fatter eating less food, which is a very economical thing for farming. But for you in this environment, not a good idea. With that, PUFA restriction looks like this. You want to start to eliminate excess seed oils, certain nuts and seeds, and begin to start to moderate this approach. In addition, you'll notice that this is going to be a lower fat dieting approach, and I'll touch more on why that's actually impactful when I begin to operate and show you the nutrition, okay? The last thing about a pro-metabolic diet, in my experience, is going to be the adequate salt intake. Sodium is huge, and it is a massive performance enhancer. I think it's one of the most powerful ones that you could take. So salt starts to lower stress, it starts to lower adrenaline, and also starts to lower aldosterone. And when that's high in stress levels, it begins to become elevated. You start peeing a lot, you start having these issues, you can't work out as much, you start to have cramps, you start to have headaches, all the stuff that sodium in the like low amounts just doesn't make sense. So salt is that last thing, and we're using this in specific reduction for stress reduction, which if you lower stress, you start to increase T3 and thyroid hormone. Those are the main things in my eyes of what makes a pro-metabolic diet pro-metabolic, but there is more, and I'll touch on this here in the nutrition side of things. So how do you begin to apply this into your life? Well, the first thing we want to look at is going to be to set up our diet, all right? And to do that, we want to first start with protein, then we'll move into fat, see what that is, and then into our carbohydrates. But before those macros can be put into place, you need to know how many calories to eat, all right? Because calories still matter. You still have to be bound by the calorie equation. In order to start a healthy calorie deficit for weight loss, there's some arguments of like, you can lose fat energy balance, but within time, it just takes too long. I don't think people want to lose body fat and get it off quickly. So you want to start a very reasonable calorie deficit while eating the right foods, and you'll begin to start to digest those foods differently. So with the calories, you want to start off by taking a look at my high energy diet model. It's actually down below if you want to have the full foods list. And you're going to take your body weight currently, and you're going to multiply it by 12. So if you're currently 200 pounds, you're going to multiply this by 12. And that's going to give you a starting point of your calorie deficit. And in this case, 2,400 calories. Right there is going to be the main thing of where you want to begin and start to see, hey, is this going to work for me to lose body fat? Yes, that's a good place to start. So with our 2,400 calories, we now are going to go and develop a model of nutrition and start to apply these principles into a diet. First off is going to be protein. So with protein, you want to be between, I like to say 0.8 grams to 1 gram per pound of body weight, because in real world experience, that tends to give a better body composition when somebody is in a fat loss stage. You start to retain muscle mass better, you have greater satiety, and overall you just sort of feel better throughout the day and not as like pissed off hungry if you are going super low on protein. So the main thing there is that you want to have that 0.8 grams to 1 gram per pound of body weight in protein. The next part of this is going to be fat intake. And on this approach, the pro-metabolic diet approach, we want to have a lot of stimulus for our thyroid function. So we're going to lower fat intake to around 15 to 25%. That's a pretty low fat intake. And we're going to start this off here about 57 grams on this model here for a 200-pound guy. The whole idea of fats is that you only need X amount of fats for your body to be able to operate hormonally and start to operate, functionally and well. And anything beyond that really is just sort of like a waste, because fat is very easily converted into fat. The ease of storage is much higher than a protein or a carbohydrate. And there's really no other performance benefits for thyroid and overall in the gym if you're going above that amount. We would rather save the energy for carbohydrates, which I'll get into now. So with the rest of your calorie amount, you want to fill it in with carbohydrates. And you'll notice that if you set your protein up correctly, and then you sort of put your fat correctly, you'll be in about a 1-to-2 ratio of protein to carbohydrate. And that's the optimal model of like, if you have this ability of 1-to-2, that you're going to be in a better state to be anti-stress and still be able to maintain lean body mass in a deficit. But in this case, you're going to get close to it, but not all the way there. And that's totally fine. So that's the main thing in the macronutrients. So with that, let's get into meal timing and food choices. So you'll notice this food is based around ease of digestion. You're going to see a lot more sugars than most diets. And you're going to see protein choices being less muscle meats, less chicken breasts, and that like, you're going to see more milk, dairy, and beef as the only like main animal protein that you're going to have in this. In addition, I'll touch on this in a second, is going to be the additions of supplemental foods, and I'll touch on what those are after I go through all of this. So for example, in this protocol, you'll see breakfast starting with eggs, orange juice, coconut oil, and a little bit of fat-free Greek yogurt. It's going to be very balanced, and we're going to give ourselves enough orange juice to balance insulin response of those eggs and give you, the fat you need to start the day. I've always noticed people when they are in a diet that if you have more fat in the morning, you tend to do better. So breakfast is going to be the higher fat meal of the day, and you'll notice that fat sort of lower in the rest of the meals. Next, you'll see a lot of snacks, all right? And this is a frequent eating approach to stabilize blood sugar throughout the day, because you never want to get too hungry and dip into those stressed out environments of like having that adrenaline and cortisol release. So you'll notice meals about every 3 to 4 hours at the minimum. Next, you'd see a snack here of cottage cheese, some Parmesan cheese, grapes, oranges, and you sort of take this as is in the diet plan, okay? We come into lunch, ground beef and rice, very easily digestible. Beef is a superfood. And additionally, we have bone broth to balance out the amino acids that are in the beef alone. In addition, you'll see another supplemental food here on this diet, and that's going to be oysters. Oysters are so powerful in fat loss for this specific reason: zinc and selenium. There's a few studies showing that if zinc or selenium is inadequate, that they have a reduction in the basal metabolic rate by about 440 calories a day. But when those are supported and you have the nutrients in the right amount, you actually get a 440 calorie increase within the metabolism compared to you not having those in your diet. So oysters are a superfood for fat loss. And also you start to improve testosterone and libido of other things from oysters. Other supplemental foods that you'll see along this are going to be like liver. I consider milk one, and the raw carrot are the main ones. And then we'll get into potent source of iodine, cranberry juice. Finally, dinner, going to be white fish. And you'll notice that I pick shrimp. And shrimp is strong because it is the whole animal. You get all the amino acids, and then you get a lot of taurine as well. Taurine is so beneficial for insulin sensitivity and also improving GABA function. If your GABA is in a good amount, then you're like, okay, I'm actually not as stressed. I don't really need to overeat as much. And you feel just sort of calmer throughout the day. So you'll see more shrimp, white cod. You'll see other sources of white fish over the chicken breast, turkey, and the likes of those poultry sources of meat on this diet. Additionally, zucchini for vegetable food volume, easily digestible, or fruit volume. In addition, more milk and white rice. I like to choose basmati rice just because it has a better digestion for most people. That's the main thing with the diet here, okay? So that's how you set it up. And this is like don't just copy and paste this. You do want to tweak this for yourself, but this gives you a rough idea of what this diet sort of looks like. Now, getting to the micronutrients, you're going to see that everything's covered. And that's like the big principle of a pro-metabolic diet. That if you're supporting hormonal function and energy production, you want to have all of this covered. You don't want to miss a single micronutrient, and that's going to be so key at the end of the day. Additionally, you'll see zinc and selenium being very, very high. And zinc just comes to the oysters, and it's a lot of zinc, a lot of freaking zinc. And you'll do this on occasion. So oysters will come out once or twice a week when you begin to add this into your diet as a supplement. And selenium, you want to be about that 200 range a day, 200 micrograms is the main thing, not to really tip above 400 micrograms a day. So the last thing I also want to point out here is going to see a lot of potassium. And with all this, you're adding salt into all your food, you want to potassium as well to support all the nutrients here. And that's it. And you'll see everything else is covered. We need all of them. PUFA is very low, and it's really coming from the eggs in this one. And then you'll see a little bit from the oysters, but if you drain them and the oil that they're in, make sure you get them in olive oil if you're doing canned oysters, and you'll see that it's relatively low. So those are the main things. And I also want to point out that this is an ultimate model. If you begin to apply this into your life, it's very metabolically supportive, and you're going to be able to eat a little bit more food and notice better body composition within your progress, okay? So that's it for this video. I'm going to be making a second and third part to all of this because I want to give you a full understanding of how to apply this into your life. So the next one is going to be about supplementation. Then I'll make one on proper training, because if you mess up to those parts, this whole model is very hard to do, all right? So if you have any questions or if you've tried this approach before, you can put it in the comments down below and I will answer those questions for you. And if it's good enough, I'll make a video on that one.